Welcome to another episode of Gari-On Talks. This is Dorette from Gari-On Talks. Gari-On Talks is a show geared towards bringing attention towards the learning and the speaking of the Garifuna language. And one way that we do this is by speaking to people of Garifuna origin. And today we have our next guest. He is a pastor that's a part of the Believers Mennonite Garifuna Ministries. And on the screen, I see Evangelical Garifuna Council of Churches. So, Pastor Andrew Nunez, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your background and your journey to where you are today.
Yes. I don't know if you have like 10 years to hear my journey and my background, but yes, I will try to be as brief as possible. And understand you observe two things. Yes, the pastor of believers mean like Garifuna ministry, and
Mhm,
you also see on the screen the I just observed that myself, Evangelical Garifuna Council of Churches. We are
mhm,
basically the same. Uh,
mhm,
just want to clarify that. We're going to talk about it later on, but then um, yes, I am Andrew Nunez. I'm pastor of Believers Mennonite Garifuna Ministry in New York. Um, I born in Dangriga, the best place in the whole world. And anybody that doesn't born there, well, you miss it. But
mhm,
I grew up in Dangriga. I do my parents. They are Garifuna. That's what I get to know. That my mother is Garifuna, and I'm very proud of my mother's. Her name is Amy Bonillo, and my father is Jan Nunez. Both of them are deceased. Um, so now I, I'm qualified to be adopted as an orphan. So if anybody want to adopt me, that's all right. Um, my journey as a young guy growing up in Dangriga, um, you have so many beginnings, but so far, yeah. So my journey as coming up, I learned to go to different churches by different people. My aunt she used to go to 7 Days Adventist, and one of my aunt goes to we call it Jehovah Witnesses, and
mhm,
so my spiritual was I also grew up in that, and I was going to Methodist school. And so I learned a lot about God. Every Friday, we go to the church, and the priest or the pastor, um, they will give stories or talk about the Bible. So that was Mandeli, and
mhm,
which is so good at that time. And as coming up, I learned, and one of my friends invited me to the Baptist church. We were classmates, and that was 1990. I mean 1977, and so I went there on a Friday night. It was a youth service, so from there we talk about accepting Christ as a personal Lord and Savior, and I did say yes, and we, and from that day I started to go to church ever since then, at the age of 13, and not
mhm,
fully advanced in my age, you know, going heading to 62. So that's to tell how long I'm living on this earth. Um, so I was baptized in the Baptist church as a Christian, and one of my partner was baptized along with me was we call him Arley Peters. He's a very we grew up together. We were going to school at the same time too. But thank God for his achievement. So I when I was about 13, between 11 and 12, I heard the voice of God, so to speak, um, told me about I need to reach out to the Garifuna community, or you know, he just used the word promoting Garifuna. That's I know about that word at that time. But then as
Mhm.
I grow up, I get to understand certain terminology, such as reaching out, promoting the Garifuna community, uplift them in many areas possible. And so and that's when I think like the Spirit of God just told me that. And ever since then, that was on my mind. I went to the church, and because I didn't see much Garifuna in our church in really in Dangriga, uh,
Mhm.
because Garifuna was considered somebody off track or whatever they consider them. But it was a some concern for me not to see them in the churches. Only Roman Catholic Church we might probably see them. So that was a concern for me as well. Um, so as I grew up, I joined a matter of fact when I was like 13, I mean like 15 years, I work at the Royal Bank at that time. Now today it came down all the way to Belize Bank. Um, so and I work at the citrus company. We call it Salada.
Mhm.
And from there, I went and joined the military, the Belize Defense Force. So when I joined the Belize Defense Force, and after my service, I came to United States in United States in August. And when I get here to United States, I met two of my friends. Well, I'll consider two of my friends. Reverend Frank Enriquez, somebody might know him. He used to be the pastor of Nazarene Church in Belize, and he was a very instrumental person there in the town of Dangriga, and as well, very influential person in my life as well. Um, so I met him and Stephen Garcia. So when I arrived, 1 week after I arrived, or within a week after I arrived, we met. I'm like, oh, I never know that these guys, we can meet up to each other for after mix of years.
Mhm.
And so Stephen Garcia told me, say, we are here to work with the Garifuna people,
Mhm.
working, building up Garifuna churches in here in New York. I say, okay, good. And explained to me that he came from California, and the pastor of California sent him, and the pastor California was our late beloved brother, Pastor Marin, Basil Marin. He passed away about 2 years now.
Mhm.
And so he sent him, and so we met together. So we started work with the Garifuna community in New York, in Bushwick. From there, Stephen Garcia say we're going to East New York. We find some people in East New York. They're mostly Honduranian, and they were from Guatemala, and they were Garifunas. So we work along with that. Um, then we started to have two churches, one in East New York, one in Bushwick. As time goes by, I still in Bushwick, work along with the youths. Um, and then I started to work along with the youths at East New York. So mostly was working with the young people at that time. I was young too, so I could
Mhm.
identify them with them. And I get involved and we started to work. And then gradually, after 2 years, Stephen Garcia told me, said, oh, I found a pastor in New York. Um, his name is Celso Jaime. So I said, okay, fine. Can we can go and visit. So once Saturday I went and we visit the home. We started his home, and gradually time goes by. Visit them several times, but then I mostly was focusing in East New York and Bushwick. And
Mhm.
I allow my pastor Stephen Garcia to continue to start build up that new church in East in what do they call it, in the Bronx. And so that group grew up, and that was he was a Honduranian, and so majority of people were Honduranian, who was part of that group, and we decided to work in East New York and back and forth in Bronx. So
Mm-hmm.
when we opened a church. That was a wonderful thing. Open that was in 1987 or 88, something like that. Now I lose track at that time. And we continue to work with the Garifuna community, and that was a passion of my heart. And even though many years ago, it took another 10 years for that to regenerate into my system.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 30 when I accepted Christ, and when I was 23 when I started to work in the Garifuna community in the United States. Um, then from there, they called me to become uh, after I got married. Um, my wife, she's Puerto Rican, and have four wonderful children. Thank God for them. And so they are here in the States. So, and thank God, I'm grateful for all of my children as well. Still, we carry on from there. Um, I was working at the Baptist church with the young people. So Pastor Steven Garcia was about to resign, and he requested my for me to carry on with the ministry in East New York and Bushwick.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I was installed as a pastor. We call it. That's the word we call. And being a pastor takes amount of years, and then I was ordained as a pastor or reverend or whatever angle you may call him. But thank God for that. Then I went to I after a year of my installation, I spoke to my bishop and said I need to work. I believe God is telling me to work with the Garifuna people and to commit myself to the Garifuna people. He said, whatever God wants you to do, then just do as it. And so I started to work with because our church used to name believers Mennonite Fellowship. And the pastor told me that we are here to work with the Garifuna people. So now the thing is that where does Garifuna come in here? And this is our mission and our purpose of existence. And so I started to rename it in 1993 from Believers Mennonite Fellowship. I just took off the fellowship and add Garifuna Ministries. And that name becomes a little controversial. Like in Belize, Mennonite as those white people, and those were the buggies, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of way we know them. Um, but that's not what it is. Mennonite is basically a belief, stand for human rights, justice, family, and stand a lot for peace. So that's what it is in that time. So there's a long history about that. So I don't want to talk much about history, maybe one of these days. But normally in the 1500, there was a man that was a Catholic priest. Um, he come to analyze the Bible, and he observed certain things, and that Jesus Christ was about peace, not about violence. So he decided to hold on that part as peace and not to be violent. And so when he was teaching that becomes another problem. And many of his followers that were following peace, they were killed because they stand for peace or want to follow Jesus Christ, peaceful life. So some of them migrated to New York, and different parts of the world with that same belief about peace, justice, love for family, caring for one another. So that's what's very interested to know all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's what we were standing for. We do a lot of services that are programmed for young people, for adults. I mean, Mennonite is all over the world. We help with a lot of communities services, provide food, job for young people, and different things as we can talk about. And they have a few Mennonite churches in Belize as well. We have like two Garifuna church, probably known as Mennonite, one in Hopkins and one in Dangriga. They're working with the Garifuna community as well. And I will talk more about a little more about. Let me just go a little more as we go along. Um, yes, so when we do that in 1993, I started to work with different churches, and I realized that there are many churches that they have the Baptist, they got the Pentecostal, they got the Mennonite, and they were basically dysfunction because of your religion and these people. So religion becomes like you know, we are better in this one because you are not belong to this denomination, and so you're done. So that was a big strong. I observed that and realized that, you know, God is the one main source. Jesus is our savior. So what's the big deal? And so I try to focus on those things to try to unite the denomination together, especially Garifuna, because they were Garifunas, most of them. They were from one different churches. Because you're Pentecostal, I don't like you, or because you don't speak in tongues, or you don't speak in, you don't do peace, and So there was different reason was Karen. So I decided to combine them to work together for the sake of the gospel of Christ and for the sake of the for the community. So we have come together because I was trying to get this going. So I have our first service in Garifuna in 1993, um, combining them and try to work with different churches, not only Garifuna people but everybody. That was very at that time was very good. Um, because I couldn't speak Garifuna myself. I, even though I tried many times, people say Hashemot, Maniba, Menga Manikat. So I still insist on speak my broken Garifuna and whatever it is. Some words I make up, or some words they will laugh and tell me, oh, that's not the way, this is the way. So I really appreciate that. Um, so in 1995 is a big, there was a different thing that happens, a movement, so to speak. As I said, that with the different church and different Garifuna denomination, I just know about two Garifuna churches that we have at that time. That was my church, and then was Pastor Celso Church. That's Evangelical Garifuna Church in Bronx, Brook Avenue. And so we are the both instrumental, but the rest of us are different members from different churches that come. So we start to unite. We call it Evangelical Garifuna Council of Churches. When I started mentioning that kind of a move name, one of the brothers said to me, said, "We only have two church, so where you have the churches?" I said, "Well, we'll start with two," and that's the idea. We, my thing was not only to see two churches. My thing was to see a movement of Garifuna become get involved in churches, Garifuna pastors to teach and preach in different denomination or different group of people. So my vision was a lot more broader because of the word I hear from God that we need to reach out to the Garifuna people, and God inspiration guiding me and helping me and getting people involved. And so when the time comes, there's another challenge comes. They say, why you want to start a Garifuna ministry or church or council and you don't know how to speak Garifuna? Now that becomes another controversial because yes, I'm not able to speak Garifuna, But that's what my passion, I believe that God told me to do. And today we have many Garifuna churches, especially in the United States. The last count I have, there was almost like 35, over 35 Garifuna churches around the United States, more. In New York, they have there's several of them who are Garifuna pastors, who are pastoring Garifuna Spanish churches, who are pastoring different church. We have Garifuna who are pastoring pastor of white church. So they were, it's kind of spread with the idea, and I thank God for this pastor bishop. Now he's a bishop. We got bishop in Garifuna. We have several Garifuna bishops. Um,
Mhm.
so the Garifuna church is still keep going. I don't know much about them now because I decided I prefer them to carry on, and whatever name they put themselves in, the idea is to keep carrying. And the thing is that wherever they go, they start wherever Garifuna go, they start some kind of movement with the Garifuna. So it's very blessing to know, and I know God is happy to see many of our Garifuna brothers, and I'm happy that we have our Garifuna brothers, Roman Catholic, Anglican, uh,
Mhm.
Methodist. So it's very things are working here. So I am happy to know that the Garifuna vision is moving forward to reach out to the Garifuna community and to bring harmony and unity among ourselves. Um, so, um, so since 1995, that does keep moving. And then I went to Belize and I started another movement in Belize known as the Evangelical Garifuna Council of Churches in Belize. So we duplicate almost the same thing. And when I was there in Dangriga, I just knew about probably two churches. We consider themselves as Garifuna, but now there are several churches that consider themselves as Garifuna in in Belize. Uh,
Mhm.
I thank God for Pastor Maru, who was very instrumental there to carry on with the work in Dangriga to try to. He's he's known as the president, as the president of the council. So I started that in 1990. This is another story. In 1990, 2000. Um, we started in 2000, and now this year it's going to be 2025. So it's going to be 25 years. Next year will be 25 years since that was in operation. I also have challenges in starting that. They say no. Several people told me there's no white people in here. Oh, this is not going nowhere and that stuff. And with all those challenges, now next year it's going to be 25 years.
Mhm.
And I know the pastor was telling me 5 years, 10, almost 10 years ago, we started something we call another movement, the convention, the Garifuna Convention. So every year we have a convention here in Belize and also in New York. We were very so in next year in Belize, uh, plan to do is to do a trip to go to different Garifuna community um, to visit each one of Garifuna community, making a tour. So if anybody interested to go, they can contact me and be a part. They're going to be in July from the 13th all the way to the 19th. So we're going to be in Belize City. We're going to have an event in Belize City. We're going to be going Orange Walk, Corozal, Libertad. Then we come down south to all the way down to Barranco, PG, uh, Georgetown, St. Bite, Hopkins, Dangriga. Well, Dangriga will be the last place which we're going to be celebrating our 25th anniversary as well as a community service. We call it community event. So it's open for the community and look forward to have different groups to be a part of that event to continue to unite the Garifuna community. Um, it's to break political barriers because religious barriers. We are talking about our social life. So it's to avoid things that separate us, to put it aside and focus on things that unite us. And one of the things that unite us, we as Garifuna, we are loving, we are kind people, we are passionate about one another. That's how our parents have taught us, and to look out for one another. And I had an interview with Mr. Roy Caetano. Um, I told him I want to know much about Garifuna spirituality and stuff because I'm interested to know about, because I don't know much about the Garifuna spirituality. I don't know much about this stuff, but I want to learn
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
understand now what this have to do between God and this stuff. But he mentioned something to me very important that I was never going to forget it. Probably he been saying that over and over, but I didn't get it until this time. And he said that one of the motto of the Garifuna spirituality is that I for you, you for me. We are for one another, you know, and we are looking for one. That was very important to me because that's one of the things that I hold on to when the verses, that's why it motivate me a lot more. When Jesus prayed and said, Father, let them be one as we are one. God is about oneness. Oneness doesn't mean that you wear the same uniform like me. It doesn't mean that you go to the same school like me. It doesn't mean that you all have the same religion, whatever it is. But the oneness that we have is a caring for one another and caring for our community. And I think that's one I think that um, T. Ramos again was very instrumental by hearing the story of T. Ramos, how he was a visionary man and he persists and persists and persists to now we have a lot of Garifuna freedom in this
Mhm.
community. So I like to say a lot to you. I like to say a lot more. I don't know. I've been saying a lot. I don't know if I take a lot of your time. I don't know if I meet your expectation and so many things. While I'm here in the United States and also in Belize, I do a lot of community service. I
Mhm.
work with different denominations. I work in the political area. Um, I work, I help in different things. I do food pantries. I help establish food pantries and so many things that I could, you know, do some crazy stuff, so to speak. Because every time I come up with a new idea, oh man, you're crazy, or this never done before. That's the idea.
Mhm.
This world stand on craziness because we never see this before, but we know it is. Like
Mhm.
for you are saying, you know what, I want to have a TV talk, Garifuna talk, or whatever it is might be. Some people might say, girl, Garifuna people is hard. That's not gonna happen. I don't know if you might have those kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
You
know,
know, you
but
always have naysayers, no matter what. So
you
that that
persist.
that's not gonna stop me anyway.
I love you for that.
No proceeding. So
That's what
yes,
I love.
yes,
And that's good. We got to be persistent, focus on
yes,
our vision, and move forward.
yes. I agree. All right, Pastor Nunez, thank you so much for telling us about your background and your journey to where you are today. So my question would be, in working with young people all these years, what have you learned from that experience?
Huh. There's a lot of things I learned. Um, Generally, I know I was young. I make a lot of stupid mistakes, or so to speak, but those are not mistakes. Those are things that we have in our time. And I realized that, you know what, I could have done different if I have to live it over. Um, so even coming on with our upcoming, with our parents trying to discourage us to achieve some of our goals because they cannot do it, they feel like it can be done. And so I have seen a lot of young people, and my passion for them is for them to be themselves, learn to understand who they are, and able to make a difference in the community, regardless of where probably from, what their background might be. Well, you can make a difference. And so I learned that young people are passionate about changing the future or work along with the future so that they could make a difference. But within that, there is a challenge of a stagnant or a barrier whereby that many of our young people parents they don't understand their children, and that's why so many tensions comes in within family. And I said I'm a child defender. Many times parents talk about, oh, the children this, the children that. Yes, I'm not disagreeing what they're saying, but I observe that is most of the time it's not the young people problem, it's our adult problem. um, because most of the time parents believe that they have to control the children or nurture the kids for the right rest of their life. But you were young, I was young, I grew up and I learned to be self-independent. Even though I like to say this because one day my sister, um, I was washing my clothes. I was like 10 years old or something like that, 10, 11, and so she gets so upset. She take a wet cloth and she whack me on my back and said, "You're not supposed to wash your clothes. You're a boy." And yeah, and then what people gonna think about me? Because my mother was in the States. And so you're gonna bring embarrassment. So like I got beaten for that, you know. But I mean it was a love. It's not really like anger, but like, and that's some of the things that we come with that idea that we marginalize young men, that they're men only, boys only supposed to be do certain thing else and girls supposed to do certain thing. But as a young person, I learned several things. And these are some of the things that I open for young people. Um, is that I saw men, big men. I was a little kid that time. Again, in my 10, I was in my teens that time. I was young, and especially coming up. And they um they have to depend on the woman for feeding them. They have to wait till the woman to come and cook for them. They gotta wait for the woman to wash the clothes for them. And there was so many things. I don't know if that's the way how they set up themselves. But I choose that I'm not gonna follow that kind of system. I will learn how to cook. I will learn how to take care of myself, because then if woman want to cut the style on me, I will eat. Yeah. So
Mhm.
the thing that I say young people want to be independent, but sometimes because of their environment, allow them to be, you know, reluctant of continue with their dreams.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of things that I have learned about from them, about myself, even though when I was young or coming up. So certain things I watched myself when I was 13. This is where I used to be when I was 13. This is what I was doing when I was 16. So things have changed and I able to understand them. And many of my young people that, my nieces, my nephew, they love to talk to me, you know, because I could identify with them, and they will tell me about their parents and my mom, my father, this. I like, you know what? Let's love your parents. That's how I say, love your parents,
Mhm.
because they are there. Respect them. I can't tell them to fight against them because it's not going to work. I say, God, where God say, you know, honor your mother, your father, and your days will go well. So
Mhm.
appreciate a lot of that. And even I have my own children, I develop a relationship with them. All of my kids, we have a good relationship. Um, yes, but we got strong respect and strong discipline and principles. They know I operate by principles, and they stick to that angle. Able to work along with them. So I learned to be a better person from learning from my own self, that if I could do better, I would have do better. So my mistakes, I don't try to put my mistakes on them so that they could create their own mistake, but help them out to get out of their mess. And so, yes, I enjoy working with them. And, many times that I have a interview or classes with them, I take them different places, create sports with them, take them out. So and up to today, they're grown men. They are grandfather, grandmother, and we still kind of have that kind of connection and respect, and I appreciate them for that. I don't
Mhm.
know if that answer your question, but
Yes, yes, it does. Yes, it does. So switching gears a little bit, tell us about growing up, Garifuna. What was that like for you?
growing up very often is a challenge. For me, in my environment, um, we were Creole because the time things was changing now. In my time in the 60s, things was changing. So most we are Garifunas, but our community was dominant by Creole and Spanish, um, whereby that in that sense we got to speak English in our church. I mean, our school, at our church, and many places. English was dominant that coming at that time. So my grandmother was speaking a little bit more English because she was more into Garifuna because that's where they come from. And as a young person, I learned to adapt to anyone. I learned to respect people for who they are. It doesn't matter if you're Creole, Spanish, or whatever. And so, but the challenges coming is to understanding the language barrier. I I was proud to be a Garifuna, but I was ashamed because I don't know the language. Not that I'm ashamed to
Mm,
be a Garifuna, I'm proud to be a Garifuna. But they say, oh, say something Garifuna, like, I don't know about that. So it was very challenging, and there wasn't material out available to learn Garifuna. It wasn't encouraged. So if you don't learn it at home, you're not going to learn it outside.
mm,
Um, and then we look at the Garifuna culture, in a different perspective. People are looking down, oh, because you're a Garifuna now, you must have to deal with, they know them as voodoo people or witchcraft or whatever. And so that's sort of kind of an image that it was out, but that didn't affect my coming up as a young man. I was careful of my environment, which I and respectful of my elders and and young and old. So I enjoy my youth in one sense. I spent a lot of time taking care of my nieces, my nephews, helping my sister. It was a challenge because my sister have children, and so I was going to school, and then I have to pick them up from school before she go to work. I got to, she take them to work, and I pick them up from the grandparents, and so we work hand in hand. And my friends and so forth was as he's coming up, I was involved in so many things, especially, and I don't like to mention this, but young coming up, I was also involved in a lot into martial arts and different things as a young people. I met several young guys and who were into martial arts. I said, "Where you learn that from?" I said, "I learned from you." Like, I don't remember that, So that was something like, I don't know. And then when I'm at 13, I spend more time into the church. I accept Christ as my savior, to be the Lord and Savior of my life. I thank God for that. And so my image was a little changed. I spent most of my life into the religious part of my life, going to church and learning, going to Bible school, learn and get involved into the ministry and so forth. So it was very challenging, but my mind was still there for Garifuna people. Even though I was there, but I couldn't able to do that transition at that time. But they were always there. When I talk about in the military, I was, was very even there in the military. There were many Garifuna young soldiers, but it was always dominant. They were very still low, even though some of them was in high position. Garifuna was a little bit like third class people in that time there. Um, I don't know if today now, I don't know if that's the same mentality that I would like to say, because there's one thing two things I'll say about this. There's one of my niece. And one of my granddaughter, I asked them what they want to be. They said they want to be a lawyer. Oh, the parents said, no, they know that no, there's gonna be no lawyer here because lawyer like to lie. Then they say, okay, I'm gonna be a judge. Oh no, you don't gonna be no judge because judges, God said, judges are sinner. Whoever judge, go ahead. So that's like these are two different people now, and tell me the same story. All right. They told me about that's why the parents told him that, or no, the grandparents told him that they're not gonna be this and so forth. So it kind of kill their dreams, and that they're not the only ones. I
Mhm.
had many times in my life that come with some ideas, and it was kind of knocked down. And they called me crazy. There was a guy one day I said to myself when I was a little kid, um, 15, 14, something like that. No, 16, I was working at Salada. And I said, I'm going to build a car that will not
Mhm.
run with gas and you're not going to have no kind of engine. And so the guy looked at me and said, man, and it's going to be faster too. No gas, no engine, and faster. He said, man, wasn't that going to happen, man? So every time this guy saw me, he said, do you fix that vehicle already? I said, not yet, but man, you're going to get crazy, man. You're crazy. And so and he saw me again and we talk and this stuff. And long after this guy get crazy, he tripped up on my engine after my ideas. And then from there, he died.
Oh God.
But today, there are vehicles that don't have the kind of engine and mobilize and move faster. Um, for example, my son, he work at Tesla, and he's the one at top engineer in there, and he supervises those things. Whereby the vehicle can drive without a vehicle can move without a driver, you know. So even though I didn't make it that time, but I have seen it, something like that will happen in my time. So
Mhm.
my son didn't know about those things. He never know about, but he's into it. So thank God for that kind of thing. And I always discourage parents not to kill the children dream, you know,
Mhm.
because they are dreaming things. Sometimes they might be right away, but they have a vision, they got a plan. Uh,
Mhm.
one day I was talking recently, this happened. I was talking to one of our young guys, son, and I call him my son, one of them, and and I said to him, "What do you want to be, man?" He said, "You know what, Uncle, I want to be a basketball player.
Mhm.
Oh no, a football player." And then the grandmother said, "Nope, you're not gonna be no football player. Cause that no bring no money on the table." Like I say, slow down, you know. Um, so when his grandmother left, and then he said, "Actually, I want to be like a basketball player." I said, "That's good. Whatever you want to be, that's good. Let's work towards it, you know." And I told him, "Man, next time, don't do things like that. Don't not just listen to what the kids are saying because they are saying something now, but we gotta encourage them to be independent and be creative."
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, all right, so that's growing up, Garifuna, and your perspective on growing up and parents, how some parents react to their kids' dreams or vision, as you rightly say. And I definitely agree with encouraging children to dream big and follow their dreams. That's very important. Um, so in terms of the language, how are you with the language? Can you understand as well as speak the language at this point?
Yes, I'm very excited. I used to go to Honduras. Thank God for that. Since 1995. I've been going back and forth every year to Belize and go to Honduras for the past 5 years or so. I spend more time in Belize, but I said when I go to Honduras, I'm going to learn at least one word in Garifuna. so that I could learn. So I'll be coming back and forth. But I learned several words um, relating to that. The Bible. Um, when I started go to Honduras and we see the Garifuna people were dying now, the language wasn't there. And when I was going to Nazarene Church, there was a lady there, Miss Mackay. She's Mackay, Rudy Mackay mother. And there was a songbook, a thin slang book, and there was Garifuna songs. It was look good. I didn't know it or whatever. And one day I took some of those books when I bring it to the States, and I gave one to James Lavelle, and he was a musician, so he like wow, you know, he was treasuring it, and Mr. Palacio also was passing some books to him, and it was in Garifuna. So when I came to Honduras, they were doing something. They were translating the Bible from English into Garifuna, the whole Bible, the Old Testament. Because I already have done the New Testament. We never were able to read that. But today I can speak a lot in Garifuna, and I can preach in Garifuna, I can pray in Garifuna, and I'm still challenging reading Garifuna. So I'm still working on that on my end because I believe that we can learn how to speak and read in our language. But does that we don't have the practice that we should. In our church, every second Sunday of the month, we have Garifuna service at 23 Marcus Garvey at 3 o'clock. Every second Sunday I have a pastor who is into Garifuna. He was one of the guys that was a part of the translation of the Garifuna Bible, and also on tape. So is John Arzu, and he's one of my assistant pastor there. And so that's what he's responsible to make sure we have the Garifuna service going on every second Sunday of the month. And so that released me a lot. So even though I can do it, but if somebody can do something better than me or they have that passion in me, that's the idea. I
Mhm.
start a lot of things, um, and then I don't, I when somebody carry on, I just like they carry on because sometimes we're afraid to. I like challenges.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to be embarrassed. If people call me, "Oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're fool." I don't care about that. Is that because my mindset that one of these days you will understand.
Mhm.
Yes, I feel a little more could speak a little bit more better in Garifuna, and I think I could express myself a little more in Garifuna, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, and I was trying to teach grammatical Garifuna, but that takes a lot more energy, and I think I was involved in so many things. So I decided, like, you know what, I want someone to carry on, and I was so happy to see some people was teaching how to read Garifuna, how to speak Garifuna, but there wasn't much people was teaching how to read the Bible in Garifuna,
Mhm.
and that's the part I was trying to come up with to do that. But now I leave most of those things to my assistants who is in Garifuna, so I can work on something else.
Mhm.
So once I take over that part, I just keep on moving.
Mhm. Okay. And your kids, do you try to pass on the language to them and teach them the importance of learning the language?
Yes. Um, my two youngest children, um, they are speaking Garifuna. They're born in America, and when I was young, I used to bathe them. I took care of my children. Um, um, they, I used to took care of them. I bathed them, and so every time I bathe them, I feed them or whatever, I would say "bobo, bago," you know, and big boogie So I say some words to them, but they didn't. But I was still saying. And one day my son told me when he was young, he said, "Daddy, when I was younger, you used to talk to me in Garifuna. I know you don't talk to me in Garifuna." I said, "Well, cause I'm not dating you no more." So but they start pick up some words. They know one or two words in Garifuna. Like I said, the mother is a Puerto Rican. She is Spanish, but she still want to consider herself as 100% Garifuna because she's been growing up in the Garifuna community. When I was starting up in East New York, she met there was a lot of people who were speaking Garifuna, and so she was learning how to sing. She sing how to in Garifuna. I don't know how to sing Garifuna. I'm not the best singer. So if you want the rain come down and if you want the flood rise up, ask me to sing.
Okay, great, great.
But they learn some words. Like, one I think that the one word I emphasize, they speak a lot some words. And my son, he knows a good history of Garifuna. One of he's Jeremiah, the youngest one. And he and I asked him if he could do a presentation for the Garifuna Mass next week that we're gonna have in at our church of believers at Marcus Garvey. And he did a wonderful presentation. He have a good idea about Garifuna. He did involve a lot. Yes, he speak. And so when I word I say Isen, Abba Iseni. I was out of them Abba Iseni, like one love, one love.
Mm,
So
mhm,
even though when I forgot to say it, yeah, that they never stop. Whenever we have a conversation or when we say bye, they will say Abba Iseni, you know. And words like that, Biti Bungio, you know, Seremelo Bungio, Biti
mhm,
Binafe. So they, and they are learning things on their own. Some things I hear my son say, like, that's good. So, yeah, they create an interest just by one word, two words, or sentence. And I always tell people, everywhere I go, I always say, Biti Bungio,
mhm.
God is good. And
Yes, yes.
anywhere I go and I have the opportunity, even when I go to the Albany in the White House and speak in whatever area I might go and have an audience, I always tell them that in my church, everybody speak Garifuna. You have to speak Garifuna. And like, wow. And I'm going to teach you this word. So everybody like, Biti Bongyo, Sumada, Biti Bongyo. So it's something that they will, I want them to stick with it because they know that God is good. Oh, I know a word in Garifuna. And what's that
Mhm.
word again? I remember my pastor, he's a white guy, a friend of mine, we shared the same building. And he's speaking Garifuna to me. He said, yeah. I said, that's it. Then he asked me some question. Why you say this thing, guy? Then I told him, and he's a white guy. He's a matter of fact, he's a white guy that taught me how to read Garifuna.
Beautiful.
You know, and I went to promote the Garifuna Bible in Belize in 2002. Um, that was very interesting because we wanted the language to be carry on. And today, I'm happy that there are many people carry on with that. But I'm still praying that we will have more Garifuna teachers who are going to be able to help us how to read Garifuna. Um, who are going to be able to help our young people. But it's a start. So we
Mhm,
start pretty good. And Miss Kai, I was very impressed of her as well. When I 2002 when I asked her to have me teach Garifuna with some of my young, they were with some adults at that time.
mhm.
And and now I thank God for her inspiration of having this vision to have a Garifuna school, um, named Willie C and other stuff. That was very interesting.
Mhm.
We started Wilson, I think Wilson maybe like 15 years or 20 years now. But maybe next 5 years, there will be more classes going Garifuna. So we
Yes,
always
hopefully a high school and then a university,
the
you
last
know.
time I will teach when it's come to university.
Ah, so like you said, it all starts with that vision, and persistence and practice. And look at where we are today. And there are more people who are dreaming bigger and making the effort to making those dreams, those visions come true. So I'm very happy to see where we are.
One other thing I heard Mr. Jose Avila stated, he always make the statement, and sometimes we forgot. He make the statement and says, I am standing on the shoulders of many men that were
Yes,
ahead of
we are. Yes, we are.
me. And I also can say that as well, people that inspire me to do what I'm doing now and learn to understand their system, their way, and get to understand my way and try to rebuild on each other.
Hmm.
But some of us, we have the idea that it's mine, and nobody, I'm the only one. No, we are not the only one. There are others.
Mhm.
We have, and the thing that I like, I always try to correct myself as well as is that even though we have an idea, we are specializing in certain things. Like for me, I'm not a singer. I'm not gonna fool myself, but I will always enjoy myself singing myself. Um, I leave that to James Lavelle. I leave that to one of my minister who's a minister of music. I don't, if I have to, if there's no music, no person that sing leading to song, I'm not gonna sing because I'm not the director or I will just teach because that's what I love. That's my passion.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll just teach you right away. But we need to continue to encourage and realize that where we at, somebody was there before us. Even though
Mhm.
they might do one little thing, you could start like for your children. Your mother only start with you and also you, right? Start with a child. One. That's two mothers have one child, and then one child have many children.
Mhm.
you know, Things are a lot more easier for them because
Mhm.
our parents make sacrifice
Yes.
for us. And sometimes that's one thing I always want to let the young people know. Respect your parents because they make sacrifice. My mother made a lot of sacrifice for me to deal
Mhm.
with a tough head guy like me, a troublemaker. Hmm, she got to be a lot of patient.
Mhm.
So, you know, we got to learn, and I'm looking forward to one of these days is to help mothers how to work with their young kids
Mhm.
uh, because we haven't learned that. We haven't grew up in doing that things. We grew up like disrespecting. Oh well, I don't like what you did, and you are not my mother. You are not my father. Don't tell me anything. We have those kind of attitude that comes up. So I think we like Carl. We look for like I'm going to use that word, but to help our young mothers to deal with our children. And
Mhm.
sometimes, like I said, I'm a child defender. I will defend my children then, you know, at whatever cost, because to me, they are not the problem. The problem happens when you identify the problem and you don't do nothing about it, then you become the problem, not the
Mhm.
problem. So it's about us trying to work with our young people, not to see them as a, but you know what, we have this kind of, we like to curse. And sometimes not the only obscenity words that we use, that F word or whatever, but cursing is about speaking negative things.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not about, because if you ask the person why you use a bad word, they will tell you, I just don't like what you're doing. I don't like what they're talking about. Dislike.
Mhm.
So that's a way how they express themselves by disliking this thing. So they're going to use those kind of obscenity words,
Mhm.
identify you as a mule or
Mhm.
identify as a female dog. So it's something that we don't realize that we are bringing a curse on the kids. you know some young girls are, they're so mad with men or whatever, they don't like men because they've been hearing that word, yeah, she dog and that dog and this stuff. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And then gradually some of them start become the she dog, you
Mhm.
know and or they become the mule, or they become whatever you want to call it. But I learned to use constructive, positive word on my children,
Mhm.
you know so that they could come up and grow up in some blessing. We got to bless our children with good things. Oh,
Mhm.
God bless you with a good life. God give you wisdom that you could, we just keep on blessing them and thanking God
Mhm.
for them. I know when I do some stupid things out of the way, you know what, my son, that's not the way, how you do things, or that's not the way you think, And instead of say you are this, you are that, so cursing is not the big fat word, so to speak, but it's also have to do with, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I agree with that. It's about positivity and promoting positivity. And of course, letting the person know, that what they're doing, the action that they're doing is not right, and they should do this instead, as opposed to, like you said, cursing them and speaking negatively to them. So I agree with that.